What's going on, Star Wars fans?
Hello there.
We are coming to you live. Nick, Derek, how are you guys doing?
Doing great.
I'm doing all right.
Good. Lots of cool things at Star Wars Celebration this past week, which I thought was pretty cool. No, they're not a lot of Marvel, but obviously
Comic-Con.
we'll talk about it. Yeah, Comic-Con. Sorry. Yeah.
Wishful
you
thinking.
guys didn't miss anything Star Wars Celebration wise.
No, that's true. No, didn't miss anything Star Wars Celebration in 2027. Anyways, at San Diego Comic-Con, and we'll get to the George stuff in a little bit here, but I'm gonna go over some of the new things that I thought were pretty cool that came out for that. So, Steve Jedi, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Hello there. Let's see. I have some things over here. They had a bunch of toys I thought that was pretty cool. That had dropped this week or at San Diego Comic-Con, and this is one of them. This is pretty badass.
Oh.
So if you guys are just joining us, say hello in the comments.
Look at that.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Sick.
Then let's see, and I'm guessing, is this from?
That's from Visions.
Okay,
Yes,
that's what I thought.
Ronan. Yep. That's great.
Wow, I love that too.
So these are new. I like this vintage.
That's the Vader one.
Yep, little battle damage there from when he gets hit.
Nice.
I think we got one more. Yeah, these are pretty cool as well.
Looks like it's a mix of like different styles too. Like those look like the small ones from when I was a kid.
Is the one guy missing a leg?
It might just be
Oh no, it's just I see it.
He's like, whoa.
It's me with my bad knee.
One other thing I saw. Okay, right here. Let me put that up there. This is pretty cool.
Ooh.
I think Nick, you'll like that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Clone Wars style.
And they're calling it classic, which I think is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's vintage now.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. So those are some of the things. That's some of the Hasbro stuff that's coming out in the near future.
I'm gonna agree with Steve's comment here. It's a very cool piece, but man, I remember when these toys.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm old enough to remember these toys being pretty within reach all the time, and now because of people like us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We're the worst.
If
that's how we do it.
Here. Austin's on. What's going on, Austin? Des Smith, welcome. Galaxy 23. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys jumping in tonight, and give you let's see, what do we got here? Have to give everybody a little
hello there.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about George coming to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time ever in a little while. Right now we're just going over some of the new stuff that was talked about, and one of the things that I thought was interesting that was talked about, and I know Mike talked about this yesterday. I'm not a huge fan of this. Maybe you can put up a something, Derek.
A poll.
But Chris Evans might be coming to Star Wars, or he's considering a role. Did you guys see this?
Yeah,
I did not actually.
And that's my thing too. I know there's some different actors.
All right,
and
the
actresses.
poll is up.
All right, let us know what you guys think. I don't know why that's not coming up, but I think because when they play a major role in there, and he might not play a major role, I'm not sure, but if he comes in there, he's such a big actor. I always consider him as Captain America. So if he comes in not being covered in a uniform, some sort of uniform or mask or something like that, it's going to look like Captain America to me. Mike brought up a good point also, and I know Luthen's been in, or I can't think of the guy's
Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah, thank you. He was in Thor. I mean, he's been in a ton of movies, but when I see him now, I think of Luthen. So
sure.
Again, that's
He
our
is Luthen.
brain.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I saw him as the Baron from Dune when I first saw him. When I first saw him in Andor, but he becomes such because he's a phenomenal actor. He becomes the character he's portraying. So you quickly lose that, and now you're right. Like I just see him as Luthen.
Chris Evans to me is the Human Torch and and not another teen movie.
Yeah, I also it's tough because every year we get hit with a few of these where it's someone supposedly in talks to do something,
Right.
And what's odd is that we never got a rumor ever that I'm aware of Ryan Gosling, and it didn't go from rumor to contract. It went to no talk to contract. So I feel like now Lucasfilm is pretty dialed in their means of keeping things under wraps until they're really doing it.
I like Steve's answer too. I like that. I mean, have him come in as a stormtrooper or throw him in as a bounty hunter with a helmet on or a Mandalorian or something like that. But even
he's too pretty for Star Wars.
Yeah. So is Ryan.
Yeah, I am too. I'm way too. That's why they haven't cast me yet.
Yeah, Evan, I would definitely agree with Evan here at Galaxy 23 that I am a fan of them casting the unknowns. But again, Evan, you're older like me, and Derek, so that we saw the originals, and they weren't on. Han Solo Harrison Ford was pretty much nobody. Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Ben, he was really the only one that had made some movies mainly in England. So it was a little bit different for him, and he didn't have a lot of screen time, a little bit in the beginning, but I definitely like the unknowns for sure to come in.
Yeah. I on a similar note, I saw something a couple days ago about when they were casting Anakin Skywalker, and I don't know if it's true. It was from some Entertainment Report account, but that Paul Walker was in contention to play Anakin and camped outside of George Lucas's ranch in order to convince him to give him the part, and he ended up going with Hayden Christensen because he thought he would have more chemistry with Natalie Portman. Don't know if that's true, but that was the article that came out this week about it.
And then he left and went really fast down the road, and soon. Sorry.
Yeah. But then I don't know if Fast and Furious happened before or after that, but
he would have had to be. Oh, well, I guess not too young. I mean, I was thinking of Jake Lloyd at first, but
2002 was when Attack of the Clones was released. So I don't know when Fast and the Furious, the first one, came out.
How old was remember anybody in the chat know how old Hayden Christensen was when he was cast for that role?
Let me look it up.
There we go. It'd be interesting to see how old Paul Walker was too, if they were similar in age. While you're looking that up, so we did get a couple more. I'm sure probably everybody has seen these already. The new picture here of Ezra, which I think is pretty cool. He's got the uniform on. He's got the scars still on his face, shaved. Obviously, he's in the rebellion at this point. So I thought I know they had released these before Comic-Con, but they were talking about them, and then I mean the freaking animation on this is just
so
insane.
Good.
It's just so good the way that they're doing that. So
it's coming up.
Yeah.
Hayden, by the way, Hayden Christensen would have been around, depending on whenever he got the job or started filming, anywhere between 18 and 20.
Okay, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I'm listening to is it Master and Apprentice, the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. It's pretty awesome.
It is great.
I'm enjoying that. I've been doing a lot of. I just watched I just binged the whole Kenobi series the other day, and man, to me, it's still my favorite. I still get choked up. The hair on the back of my neck still stands up at some of these points in this. It's just so cool for me to see that 10 years after, Return of the Jedi, just what's going on. So I hope they do a Kenobi series and hopefully maybe do more of the Force Ghost and bring Liam in. He's doing that Naked Gun movie. I'm like, dude, seriously, if you're going to do the Naked Gun movie, you need to come back to Star Wars.
It's killing though.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it will.
Naked Gun has got some pretty strong reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be funny.
Yeah.
But, so let's see. Anything else until we get into I have something here. I'm going to share this. If you guys haven't already seen it, I'm gonna share a little clip.
I might have gotten a picture of her, and then I was like, oh yeah, I know what I'm gonna do with her, and maybe the script or of that part of the episode or something was something, so it gave me some idea, and they just kept kind of giving me sort of like creative license to kind of go, oh, what would you do with this, and how would she sound, and what about in this situation, and blah blah blah. And so that's what happened. I just kind of went with whatever the vibe was in the moment that felt right to me.
That is the one and only Nika Futterman. And Nick and I just did an interview with her. If you haven't seen it already, it's on YouTube. It's about an hour. She goes in depth about just voice acting in general.
Don't go too far because I'm only 30 minutes into it.
Spoiler
alert.
No, I won't give you too many spoilers because I want everybody to go watch it. But and it's cool. This is how cool she is. She pulled over because she was running late and she didn't want to miss out on this opportunity, which I thought was really cool. And she pulled over on the side of the road over in LA. She was coming from doing a gaming voice. And she sat and talked to Nick and I, on the side of the road and answered all the questions, and just what a wonderful, fun person she is. And the amount of love she has for that character is really cool. And I don't think, and I'm pretty sure both of you guys would agree with me, nobody else could do that voice. She does such a perfect job. I mean, what do they call that? The chef's kiss, for that character, and not taking away from anybody else, but just the way that she brings that character to life with that voice is just so cool. And again, not to take away from D or James or anything like that, they do a great job again with the Kenobi or Rex or whatever, but her bringing Asajj Ventress to life through animation and the way she talks about it and the passion that she has for it is really cool. So if you guys haven't already, go check that out. So if you haven't left a comment up there, leave us a comment, say hello, see who's here. What is Steve
if you haven't done the poll yet, we're doing, do you want to see Chris Evans in Star Wars? We are at 43% yes, 57% no. So get your votes in on that poll.
And say why you voted that way.
Well, I'll tell you why I voted that way, because it was 50-50 and I broke it. I said no because I don't like Captain America, because I am an Iron Man guy.
Me too.
And I just can't with Cap.
I
loved him and I love his movies. I think Chris Evans nailed his character.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm an Iron Man guy. I mean, I'm Tony Stark. Like, let's go.
I'm not even that big of a Marvel guy, but I was keeping up with them with Austin at least up until like Civil War came out. And Civil War, like I think Chris Evans is great, does a great job, but I just for some reason I just couldn't stand Captain America in that movie. It just ruined it for me. Because it just always felt like Robert Downey Jr. makes a more compelling point the whole movie. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Derek, but
for sure.
He's making a pretty solid point. He's like, but I'm a superhero the whole time, and that's just kind of the vibe I don't want to see, But,
yeah, is that the Larry Mitchell in our chat?
Larry Mitchell, thanks for
Larry.
coming on, Larry.
Hello there.
Like
What's up,
guitarist
Larry?
Larry Mitchell?
Nice.
Looks like it.
Man, Larry. Hey, how's it going, man? I'm a fan. Nice.
Painted Tusk, hello there. Thanks for joining
Hey,
us.
Painted Tusk.
So let's get into a little bit of this George Lucas thing. I do find it interesting that this was the first time that he was at Comic-Con. Thought it was pretty cool. It's just I've seen him at Celebration. I think it was the first Celebration I went to, which was 5 back in 2010. I think that's when I saw him, but I was surprised that I thought he would have been at Comic-Con before, so I thought it was pretty cool. He didn't really talk too much about Star Wars for the most part. He has a new project coming out, but he made an appearance, which I thought was pretty cool. He looks good too.
I heard that I don't know if it's confirmed or not, that it was the biggest panel crowd they've ever had.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Like a handful of 1,000 people. So
yeah, over 6,000 people, which is pretty cool.
Yep. And he's working on it. Aren't they working on a museum?
Yeah. Let's see. We got that one up here too. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's huge. It's 5 stories and 300,000 square foot.
Holy smokes. Let's do that right here. There we go.
I mean, it was one of those record breaking, but like it was, yeah.
Dang. Yeah, and supposedly they're having like a life-size Naboo starfighter in there.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Indiana Jones stuff, ILM stuff.
There's a different view on it.
Wow.
Let's check that out.
It
kind of looks like SoFi Stadium.
Yeah. It's next to a stadium. I don't know if it's the baseball stadium, but there was a different picture I saw today, and it's right next to, I think it's the baseball stadium, whichever is over there. Well, they probably got a bunch of them because they have a whole bunch of LA teams there.
Mm-hmm.
But for him coming in and talking about this museum, like I said, it's 300,000 square feet and 5 stories tall, which is enormous.
Yeah,
and it's more than just Star Wars. It's an art, some sort of art. What does he say here? I forget what it's called. I had it written down.
Yeah, I was reading some stuff about like the cost and the design. There was like some, I don't know if it was a record that they were breaking or something like that was big that had never been done. But also Luke's land speeder is going to be in there.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
So yeah.
Some helmet. I think it was the Stormtrooper helmet from A New Hope. One of the Stormtroopers that was on in Mos Eisley, and that just went for $250,000. Yeah. So I have it over here.
I was just going to bring that up. I was going to say,
where is it?
So does your wife know you double mortgaged the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not surprised he didn't do a ton of Star Wars talking. I could see there being even maybe like legal, ramifications to like where he can talk about it. And I would assume if he was making a debut to talk about Star Wars, they would want to make sure that was in Celebration. And it seems like that maybe this Comic-Con appearance is like a warm-up for the 50th anniversary celebration in 2027. Because like who else would be bigger to bring on at the anniversary convention than George Lucas himself. So I think if nothing else, it was a good warm up, and then that would be the record breaking panel, I would think, at Celebration, because he's never done one of. I mean, he had never done a Comic-Con for sure, and Star Wars, like, big actors don't typically do Comic-Cons either. they do like some of the shows now and stuff, but you weren't seeing like prior to now, Ewan McGregor going to a Comic-Con or Harrison Ford, you know, maybe you did. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't think he's ever had a panel there. I think he just obviously for Star Wars Celebration, he would just show up just because he's the maker.
Yeah.
Which again, I think Derek had brought up a good point while we're talking about him in reference to the main focus for tonight's I guess podcast was the impact of what George Lucas has on modern Star Wars. And I think it's pretty evident, you know, he's still in there. I think it's sort of like Gene Roddenberry with Star Trek. You have all this new stuff coming out, and everything is based off of those original movies or the original TV shows with Gene Roddenberry. But I think it's tremendous the amount of sci-fi and stuff that and what he did at ILM and what Skywalker Sound back in the day is still apparent today.
I think it had something to do with Dolby too. Is that right, Derek?
He did. And also, like, he's the reason that we have digital film the way we do now.
Right.
There's so much that he did that was just groundbreaking that at the time people didn't even come close to understanding. So if it wasn't for him, I mean, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have ILM, like Ron just said, and we wouldn't have movies like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So people don't realize the impact that George Lucas has. And when Ron brought this question up, and I was like, I think we should talk about his impact now, even though he's not, you know, he doesn't own Star Wars anymore. He is still actively involved, heavily involved. And if it wasn't for George selling Star Wars to Disney, we wouldn't have all the content we have, because there's no way he could have done it on his own.
Right.
And there's no way that any other studio could have done it to the extent that Disney's done it. Whether you love it or hate it, I love it. There's some misses. That's fine. When you have that much content, they can't all be home runs. But we've gotten so much content. I am just thankful that he made the right decision, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's also the only studio that could pull off the sale too. You know,
of course.
Like, we always joke like Disney's got unlimited money. We can get, you know, even Andor almost cost $1 billion between the two seasons. But, you know, it's whether you love it or hate it, like the fact that he did that was in the best interest of the fans and of himself too. And, you know, I know like the fandom likes to have a field day over, like he should have never done it. Like that is the best thing for him. It's the best thing for Star Wars. It's the best thing for fans. Because otherwise what's going to happen? It's just going to kind of fade and, you know, one day get in the hands of someone who didn't have the utility to make it. And then you get something weird. Like, you know,
or you'll just get 3 movies every 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it's not enough.
Well, yeah.
And then go ahead.
Well, it's just crazy how much like we actually get now, which seemed impossible. Like even when I was a kid and Star Wars was coming out, like you're telling me we don't get 3 movies over the course of 7 years. We get movies, shows, you know, all that stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. Steve Jedi Jarvo said, thank the maker. And I agree 100%. And then Painted Tusk is in the chat while she's also texting me all this behind the scenes stuff. She needs to be on the podcast because I can't say what she's sending me, but I'm sure I could probably tell you guys later. But it's crazy. Like the Star Wars stuff that she gets to see at Disney.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's find
on
out.
Your Painted Tusk.
Yep. Well, and I think as you guys were talking about, I think some of the character templates that George had, you know, with Luke and the anti-heroes and the hero's journey and different things like the arc of Anakin, and the DNA that he put into that is also in these new characters like Rey and Ezra and and Din Djarin. I think when he established those type of characters, I think that we have been able to bring, you know, some of that stuff on here, which I think would be really cool. Or I thought for that to bring into nowadays, which I think is really cool. So those are some of the things, and like you said, was all that stuff that he did back in the 70s and 80s with the dog fights and things like that. You still see that stuff today. So you're Joe Pal. What's going on? Welcome. But,
yeah,
you know, and also even like the modern shows, you know, Ahsoka and Mandalorian, Andor, still use themes that he pioneered: the redemption, the balance of the Force, you know, things like that. I think it's still almost 50 years later. It still comes through in these shows that we have.
Well, I know I always maybe square peg in a round hole, or which way does it go? I don't know. I beat the hell out of this topic all the time. So if everyone's sick of it, then they can mute me for a second. But like, part of the reason why the George thing hits so much is that he is so good at taking like themes and stories that are very real and very like, you know, human throughout history. Like, the reason why the prequels work is because he calls it's basically me trying my best to make Star Wars Shakespeare, and to hide that in a kid's movie, you know, and that works. So he takes these very real things that work, and he's not just putting things in because they're cool or because, you know, he's got an idea. He's using these very real things. Like Andor uses those themes and still follows that idea of like, there's a people story here to tell. There's something that people care about, not just because they're characters they like, but because we can fit this world into their world. And I think he does a great, you know, service to the stories by implementing things that you can't exactly cite, but it's all over our histories and our lives and everything. And then to that end, like, Disney did not fire everybody when they bought Lucasfilm. They made sure people like Dave Filoni were still on board. Like Kathleen Kennedy, I know we've talked about her a lot, that she was still on board. Like, he pushed those two into there. Like, you need to hire Kathleen Kennedy. You need to keep Dave Filoni. Like, they kept people around. Pablo Hidalgo, if you know who he is. And then this is my biggest thing too.
Yes, so much yes.
We've never really talked about it on here, but like, one of the most important characters in Star Wars is John Williams, and not just his cameo in the sequels, but his music is a character in and of itself. Like, it drives much of the story, and that's true for all the films he worked on. But like,
listen to Star Wars without his music. I was just watching some dubs and watching that documentary from 2000 or earlier in the 2000s, and seeing like what the movie was before John Williams got the music.
Yeah,
it's not wonderful.
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, obviously it was in pre-editing and stuff, but man, talk about the polish that he put on there.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think part of more than just like the Star Warsy stuff, he makes it a very much a unique world that also reminds you of your own world, and that's something I'm glad they've kept around, because you could very easily go full sci-fi, which I think is cool. Like, Star Wars should be experimenting. Star Wars should be trying out new things, but you've said it a lot, Ron. Like, they stay very true to the original themes because there are now many generations of people who are into it from many different times. And if you don't, you know, it's kind of a formula at this point. If you deviate from that feeling we all got when we first saw Star Wars, then it's not going to hit the same, you know. But
yeah, no, well, and the documentary, by the way, is Empire of Dreams.
It's a great documentary.
Yeah, it's from 2004. But also, like, as you guys were saying, with the way he like has done stuff, if you watch Andor and you don't think of THX 1138,
yeah,
like that's a super nod to that movie, that short film he did, which
Mm-hmm.
he got in trouble for because he made it way too long, which also is in that documentary. So there's so much that all the new people are doing to give kudos to the old work he did too.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and Evan, I did the same thing. We just had it here in Nashville, the symphony. We went to the symphony, and
which one was it?
It was collaboration of all of them. I have a short that I got to finish getting together and stuff, but I mean, they played everything from obviously the Emperor's March, all that stuff. But I mean, they played the solo, which was cool. They played Ray's theme. I mean, it's just so neat also to watch all the instruments, when they're being played along and watching that. And there's another one coming in November here, and it's actually going to be at the Schwimmerhorn at the theater here, and they're going to show A New Hope. So
I saw A New Hope at Skirmerhorn, and I saw Phantom Menace. So
nice.
they play the whole movie,
and they play at the same time.
It was incredible. And my wife let me wear my Sith robes and take my lightsaber. It was one of the greatest days of my life.
I wanted to go back just a second here. Nick, you were talking about, we've talked about in the basis of this, but I mean, he built the entire mythos of the Jedi and the Sith prophecies, and it's just crazy that it's still going on, and you still have all of those things today in whether it's the Mandalorian or Ahsoka or Obi-Wan, or it's going to be in these movies that are coming out. That's what this is about. I mean, even though Andor is not, it still is, because we go right into Rogue One where we see Darth Vader. So again, it all ties together, but I think it's amazing that he brought this Jedi Sith type of thing, the Republic and the Empire, and we're still making movies about it. We're still making TV shows and animation, and all of that is from years ago and still doing a good job today. Even the what they call it, the volume, I mean, pretty much Lucas pioneered that with CGI, and then now it's this huge thing that everybody's using. But like you said, Derek, you wouldn't have like Jurassic World or Jurassic Park or some of these other movies if it wasn't for Lucas and ILM, or now the volume, or things that he did.
Well, and I think Nick really hit a really good thing talking about the music as well. And I want to kind of go back to it, because the way that he did the music for Star Wars really made it so you had, well, obviously you have Indiana Jones music, and then you have the stuff from Jurassic Park. But like somebody in the chat said about the other composers that they used, and like look at Ludwig Göransson that did Mandalorian.
Like,
so good.
One guy did that.
Yeah, Kevin Kiner did all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and then what is it, Michael Giacchino? Or I don't know how to say his.
Close.
Hey, fun fact for everybody. I'm doing this blind, but I believe in it. If you go, because John Williams did Harry Potter as well. Mm-hmm. If you go watch Attack of the Clones when they're chasing down Zeb, or maybe it's a different scene, but there's a scene in Attack of the Clones where there's some kind of chase. The score for that is exactly the score and is used in the Chamber of Secrets during the Quidditch match.
Well, Harry Potter is just Star Wars told in a different way.
So, no, but it's literally, it's not even like they're similar. It's literally the same song. So someone go check me on that, but it's literally the exact same one. I remember I was watching, this would have been a couple of years ago, I was watching Chamber of Secrets, and I was like, this is from Attack of the Clones. And it is, I'm telling you, maybe I'm wrong, but
that's interesting.
I'm not.
Check that out. There's also that rumor. I don't know if you guys have ever tried it, but I think is it Dark Side of the Moon, or one of the Pink Floyd albums. You can play it during Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
And it's pretty cool. That would be fun to do.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that one because my mom had like the VHS with like the bad stuff in the background that happened with some of the cast members, and like once I found that out as a kid that there's that you can go search on the internet for it, and I had it, and I was like, and then watching Dark Side or listening to the Dark Side of the Moon with it, that was it. I couldn't do it anymore.
You know what we should do? I've seen some edits of Star Wars scenes, but with like, popular music. So like we should make some of that, because I saw a scene of when the clones come in at the end of Attack of the Clones, and they fly in and the ships and everything, they're playing Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Oh yeah.
Like as they come in, like it's Apocalypse Now.
That's
and
cool.
It's sick.
Ron, didn't you make something like that once?
I've made a couple different things like that. Yeah. I did the last episode of Clone Wars when Ahsoka leaves, and I did it with Disturb the Sound of Silence, but that really funky version, which is so cool. And it is, music makes these movies. Whether you, like you said, Nick, we could do something like that where you could play that song coming in too, which would be fun. When they come in like that, and have a different theme for a different song for that scene, which I think would be cool.
But yeah, I think back to our original point, the George lives on, whether it's through, the other people at Lucasfilm, but it's such it's weird. Like I just saw, for example, the trailer for the new Avatar movie, which looks cool. I like Avatar.
Me too.
No issues with it.
I have issues, but I still love it.
I think the first Avatar is basically Dances with Wolves in space, but we can get into that some other time. But the feel with like that Avatar is like, I'm not expecting it to follow this like spirit of the films. I'm just like, I'm gonna watch a really cool, accomplished movie that I know is like insane to have made, and all that, and I like the characters, whatever. But when you're going into a Star Wars movie, you're expecting kind of like a spirit to be there, and that's what can kind of make or break it for some of our fans, fellow fans, is like, you kind of have these expectations of how you've envisioned things, how you feel, all that kind of stuff, and you can't really get away with not having that spirit rooted in that world the way that you might be able to get away with other things. Like you could make an Avengers movie that's kind of its own thing. But if you make a Star Wars movie, it definitely is rooted in this world that you feel very familiar and you feel the spirit of. And that's a testament to George's world building ability. And I'm sure there's lots of criticisms you've gotten over the years, including from us or maybe even from me. But world building is not one of them. He built this incredibly sophisticated world, one where you can take little details from any little point and make entire shows or entire novel series about. Like, it's so rich that like it's gonna live on long before, long after we're gone. And the only reason, to your original point, Derek, the only reason it can live on is because of the sale,
Yep.
And
I think Evan has a good point here too. You have the sound effects as well. When he's, like you were saying, Nick, world building, bringing in Dave Filoni, bringing in Doug Chang, John Knoll, Foley, these sound effects, and these other guys that are that made it back then, and these newer guys that are continuing to bring it to life now is fantastic. So I think that in the sound effects definitely have a lot to do with it. Whether it's R2D2 or the lightsaber or whatever it is, it's just something that brings you back to that moment. When you hear, it doesn't matter, when you hear that lightsaber ignite, you know exactly what that is. When you hear Chewbacca or you hear R2D2 beeps around. Yes.
Somebody mentioned it in the chat already, but even little things like you find a American male my age who was into Star Wars, or I shouldn't just say it for just males, an American Star Wars fan my age, the sound of Jango Fett's seismic bomb is like
So
music to our ears. Like it's the coolest thing that ever happened. And it's such a small part of that movie that like the sound design for that, so much so that they brought it into the new shows twice.
Yes.
And you know, probably just like a throwaway cool effect thing they figured out. And then it just lives on, you know, and we can't get enough of it.
I love the TikTok with the girl at the Starbucks is like, name me a better sound than this. And like, she's like shaking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It's perfect.
Your pal Joe. I have not. I was telling Jacob, I sat in the theater, got through all the previews, was ready to go, and the electricity went out in the theater. So I have not seen Fantastic Four yet. I'm planning on going tomorrow. I've heard good things about it, so hopefully it will be fun.
Someone's got to hook us up with Pedro Pascal's manager for all the work he's been getting.
I know.
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he got to hang out with Sabrina Carpenter. That's enough for me.
Well, it was funny to go way back to when we were talking about like big actors coming into this, like a Chris Evans, and we haven't seen Pedro's face in a while. So again, that's something like that where you see it for a second, or you see it for a clip or a series or whatever. That would be okay with me for like a Chris Evans, because I think you're sort of hiding him still. He's behind the mask. You can maybe hear his voice, but I think it's going to be better with somebody different, or if they have him in a mask like that, where, you know, you have Pedro, which, I mean, he was big even before Mandalorian, I think. You know, obviously this helped him get some bigger roles, I think. But with you know, everything that he's doing now, it's like, yeah, like you said, he's everywhere. So
yeah.
Some of the other things that I thought were cool, again, like we were talking about with George and his modern Star Wars, you know, impacting the modern Star Wars, is the stories that he has and that he's given to Dave. I know we were talking about world building and Chang and stuff like that, but for him to bring Dave and take him under his wing and just be his Padawan, now he's the Jedi. He's definitely the Jedi Knight, if not the Jedi Master at this point, to continue to bring George's vision to life. And Nick, like you said, in so many different ways, in so many different stories that we have, which is incredible after 50 years. There's really not much. Star Trek, yes, it's been around for a long time as well, but it's not pop culture like Star Wars is. Even the comics, you know, Marvel or DC, yeah, they're big, but not as big as Star Wars. And I think that's because of what George did, you know, back then, and has been able to bring to Dave and even John to continue to carry this on.
Yeah, I think part of like the formula for why, for example, when you watch Empire Strikes Back, why that typically is what people will say, well, that's the best movie. Like this is the best movie out of all of them, is because of this like perfect mix of George Lucas having the world and the vision and the story, right? And then having all of the most right people at the right time, and leaning into that. So like we talked about this last week, but the ensemble of actors and actresses was like the right mix of people. Obviously John Williams, we just talked, is the best person for the job. The people working for ILM who mastered this like brand new craft of like, and kept innovating this thing, were the perfect people to just like be imaginative and do the thing. And then importantly, like having a director take the reins, Irvin Kershner taking the reins and being able to push it off. Like it was all like finding the right people to deliver, this huge thing in a way that like lasts forever is so important. And I feel like that's what maybe there have been some hiccups along the way, but that's what it seems like Lucasfilm has been trying to work into. Like, they didn't bring Jon Favreau in just because he's a fan. They brought him in because he's the right guy to like jumpstart some series. Dave Filoni's the right guy for, the George Lucas evolution. But like at the time, he had never done live action before. So, it was the right move to bring in Favreau, to bring in all these other people, to keep these sort of like people in Lucasfilm who are the right people to make sure things work. I think it's really important that it's not just like keeping George's thing alive and being imaginative, but keeping the right people who make this thing go. And that changes over time. But, not to open this can of worms up again, but like Kathleen Kennedy was the right person for the job, and
she was.
Yeah, it might not be, a couple of years from now, might not, who knows? But like, it's the right move, the same way that Irvin Kershner was the right move for Empire, because, George needed people to execute and needed people to push back even, we wouldn't have got the "I love you, I know" quote if people didn't push back, which is like
watching like some
thing.
of those documentaries, you see Carrie Fisher especially was very vocal about like how miserable George was. Not like as a miserable person, he was not enjoying himself on New Hope.
Yeah,
and was just so stressed and so unhappy. I mean, he took his money from American Graffiti and invested in himself in that movie, and the stress and things weren't going well. And the actors really kind of held it together for him. So for him to have that wherewithal in Empire to like, I have to give this away to some other people so it can be successful. It's genius. That's really, to me, that's why the movie's so great. And Nick, you've said this in a million different ways, but that's why the movie's so great, because George had the vision to let people do stuff that he knew he couldn't take to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to be fair to him, those people couldn't have built that whole thing out.
No way.
So it's the right pieces in the right places that I think is really important moving forward. Like, I think they've been doing that. Like, it's not as if Tony Gilroy had, hey, blank check, blank piece of paper, go write Andor and come back with it. Like, they're all working together so closely and for so long that it's kind of this, I'm sure that's the case in many studios, but you hear a lot of rumors about, how DC used to run and that kind of thing, where there was no, none of that going on. So I don't know. I think part of what lives on too is the need for people with the right skills, the right time, the right roles, making it happen. And that's why we keep getting it, but I'm interested to see how that plays out in the future, especially if we're shaking up people in Lucasfilm and what types of projects they're doing. If you can take bigger swings when you're not just solely focused on trilogies anymore, that sort of thing. But
I think Steve's got. Yeah, I think, and that's just it. I mean, everything that's coming is based off of George's, beginnings. And I think everything that we got going on is, like you said, Derek. I mean, it's not enough. I mean, as much as we're going to get, it's still so cool, which we all enjoy. Again, just watching these live actions over and over again, and reading these books, and I'm in the middle of watching Clone Wars at the same time. It's just amazing how everything still gets drawn together and falls back onto what George started almost 50 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I started rewatching Ahsoka again the other night, and like rewatching, this is the first time I've rewatched it, and looking back, I'm like, why did we not sell? I know a lot of people love Hu Yang, but like, what an amazing character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And as I'm watching it again, I'm like, I enjoyed Hu Yang and what that character brought. But now I'm like, this was so much bigger of a role than I even knew when I watched the first playthrough.
Yeah. Well, and it's good with these new things. Like, is the right word a talisman? Like a very wise like person who's telling you, is that the right word?
Right.
So it's like this character who, for both for our benefit because it's cool, and for anyone who doesn't really know what's going on, Hu Yang is like the vehicle for like, oh yeah, here's what's up, and that is so necessary. And I feel like with Hu Yang, they found such a good balance of not using him too much. Like he's their buddy there, but like when you need it, he's gonna give you, he's gonna build the world for you a little bit, or he's gonna send you back a little bit. And
David Tennant's such a genius too. And like, there's another Harry Potter reference for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a great actor. But yeah, just watching it again has been more impactful to me than the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think Evan has a good point here, but I disagree with him in reference to Dave Filoni. I still think we need to see what Dave can do with a movie. Dave's done a great job with what he has put out here, and don't get me wrong, I think he's fantastic, and he's keeping this alive. But I think I think the upper echelon, Evan, is sort of doing the directors, hiring or firing, or these people coming on and then leaving again. I think it's interesting when we have different directors coming in, and I think that brings a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, but just a little bit different for everybody. That we don't have the same director, like you were just talking. Both of you guys were talking about with Ivan coming in, even Ivan coming in for Empire. It's just a different look. So when you have a Ryan Johnson, or you have any of these different ones coming in, that they were actually talking about, and I think it's might even come to fruition, is I always forget his name, Tiki or whatever his
Taika
name.
Waititi.
Yeah, thank you.
You can never get that one.
But somebody like him coming in, the Glover brothers, bringing people in like this to have a little bit different. Andor was something completely different than anything we've seen. Mandalorian was something completely different. I mean, there's tie-ins here and there, and there's references and Easter eggs, but I think the Mandalorian is almost like that Western style thing, which I think is so cool, more than any of the other ones. And then you have Andor, which is just these normal people that are doing, living life and fighting for what they think is right. And there's no force, there's no lightsabers, and we're able to still enjoy that and take it back into the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Ron. Like I'm going to pull this back up. I'm not a Dave Filoni hater, and I'm always playing devil's advocate and sounding like I'm hating on him. But when you're like, budgeting a movie or like putting out a movie, there's still an element, even though we all love it and we all want story first and a good movie first, like it's going to be hard for Lucasfilm to sell like, hey, we're going to put out a trilogy and we're going to have a guy direct it who's never done a movie before.
Right.
And I think co-directing for Filoni is a movie would be insane, because it would, in my opinion, it would be a lot like what we just mentioned with Empire, where you have Dave, who's kind of like your resident Star Wars genius expert, who, as far as like directorial stance, might be a little too close. And
right.
So you get someone to kind of like help streamline and communicate it, and he can, basically protect the universe and also give his creative input without all of that, because there's so much that goes into directing that takes you out of, the world building aspect probably day to day, like schedules, all that, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying Dave can't do it. He's done a great job so far, but it would be a hard sell for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to say we're going to do a trilogy with someone who's, we have yet to put on a movie, and that's why I have a guy like Favreau in there, who could totally do it.
Right.
And I think him and Favreau work great together. But I still think that doesn't mean don't make Filoni a director. I think have him co-direct it, have him do his job now as like creative head, and have him always be producing,
right,
helping direct, that sort of thing. And then, especially if he gets his own standalone movie, that'll really be the test of like, we don't even know his live action style yet. Right. We know his animation style. We don't know what he looks like stylistically. Like you said a couple weeks ago, Derek, when you see a J.J. Abrams film, you know exactly that is J.J. Abrams film that. So like we don't know. Dave's probably great at it, but I couldn't tell you what his looks like yet because we just haven't gotten it yet.
Right.
That's not a knock on him, but I think, if he's involved, if he's the consistent person, that's what we want. Whereas like you can have different directors and everything, but if there's nobody consistently kind of like overseeing and making it work, that's where it gets hairy, kind of like what happened.
Give him the title of producer, like you said. Producer, he can be in and do just as much, but he's not in directing it. He's able to watch. I don't think Evan said something about he thinks Dave has more experience than George did. Yes and no, but he just got, and not that it was a smash or anything, not that it was a big blockbuster, but American Graffiti he just came off of, and then he went in to do A New Hope, and then
THX,
right, yes, yep, and then he was like, okay, I need to give this directing chair to somebody else.
But I think people forget, like, he was roommates, or I don't know if roommates or best friends with Francis Ford Coppola, and like the people that he went to film school with are the biggest directors and producers and writers ever.
And everybody helped each other out with film and stuff in those days, and so like he had very significant like experiences. And again, in Evan's defense, Dave Filoni has a ton of experience with that as well. It's the translation. Like, I don't think anybody can do animation better than Dave Filoni, but we haven't seen a Dave Filoni feature film yet.
Right.
And so I think these series are good for him, because I think that's what people were talking about with season 2 of The Mandalorian, is like that episode with Ahsoka was the first time he's done it. So it's like, we got to get him some reps, get him to figure out what he likes, because we're going to do Ahsoka, so I think the more we get from him live action, the more we'll be like, okay, I can feel the vibe of what a Dave Filoni movie is going to look like. The same way when Taika Waititi is going to come into Star Wars, you kind of have a feel for like, I know what that's going to feel like, and I'm going to have fun with it. But then you get the question marks like Levy and Gosling, and you're like, I don't know what that's going to be like. So it's because of their style, and we just don't know Filoni's style yet.
Well, and I'm a little confused. So Evan said, so the latest trilogy, 2 different directors with either one leaving or getting fired. Ron Howard. Are you talking about Solo though? Because like Solo had Lawrence had the 2 different directors. Yeah, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller that got fired, and Ron Howard picked up the pieces. And I thought he did a great job knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
But same kind of thing. Like, you think that you get the right person, and then you get into it, and it's like there's a lot of personalities and there's a lot of things going on. I'm with everybody, and we've talked about this before. I think Dave needs either a co-person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think he'll be great, but.
And you know this better than anybody. Like, it's kind of like you can have like a bunch of the best musicians in a room, but it doesn't mean that they make a good band.
That's a fact.
and
That's a fact.
yeah, and the one thing that I will say, like that I will knock, even though I'm not a sequel hater at all, is that like there seemed to be a little too much ability to pivot based on the public response, and they did. Like, it might have actually just been better to stick with Colin Trevorrow and just do it. And who knows, like maybe there were personal differences, like you were just saying, maybe there were like big conflicts with how to make it and everything. So they went back to JJ. But we know now that there was like no continuity or any real help between them, between, you know, what Abrams set up, what Ryan Johnson set up, and what Abrams finished with. And I don't feel like that happens now. I feel like when they do these series, they know what they're doing, and they, you know, even with the Acolyte, like they were definitely planning to do season 2 and didn't, you know, maybe they will.
But like you said, that was a public perception thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of
And
the way people reacted. So they're like, oh, we're just going to be done.
yeah. They have a little too much, I think, freedom to scrap really good creative ideas and move with what they hope will keep their investors happy, which is kind of the business.
Right.
But
that and Disney board members, it's like, earning reports, like,
yeah, because the most hated on Star Wars film of all time did pretty freaking well at the box office. So I feel like there's got to be, with this new regime maybe taking over, like a little bit more like, hey, maybe we won't depend on the biggest film in the world to make our quota, but we're going to have more creative freedom and make smaller things, you know?
Yeah. No,
what
absolutely.
do I know?
Steve Jedi, I totally agree with you. I think that Dave has got his experience from George, and I think George is teaching him and has taught him very well. But I don't think that gives him, until we see a directorial preview of a major motion picture from Dave Filoni. I think that from what Evan was saying, I don't think we need to put him in the spot and just be like, okay, Dave, you direct everything from now on out until we find some other stuff. I think that it's a good job. What they're doing is finding some of these other directors and having Dave as the George Lucas of, you know, again, the storytelling, okay, you can put this character in, but you can't connect this character with that character, and you can't do this or that. I think Dave has to be a big part of it. And I think, like you said, Nick, he could be a co-producer or a co-director, but definitely a producer on all of these movies, which I'm probably pretty sure he is a producer on everything that's coming out to this point, even with Mandalorian and Grogu, you know, Starfighter, all of these things that are coming out, he's going to have a say in it because he is the creative boss now.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, is that if Dave just puts on the flannel shirt, it probably fix everything.
Yeah. Well, and I'll stick up for him too, that I don't think it's not fair to Dave Filoni for us to assume that he can just do everything you want all the time and save everything that you hope is going to happen, because it's not fair to him. And it's also not realistic to assume that, like, just because he is like the Star Wars mind now, that everything is going to satisfy everybody all the time, or that like that's why I don't want him to just be thrown on a trilogy. I want to see him like find his voice on it, you know, and he's already so great at these things. Like let's let him build a portfolio of Star Wars stuff. Or honestly, like I think Dave Filoni would do great making other things too. Like I think if he could get a chance to do something that isn't Star Wars, that might actually make him better at doing something for Star Wars. But I don't think it's fair for us, and I'm guilty of it, for being like, well, if Filoni does this, it's gonna totally revamp our opinions. And it's like, it's not fair. I think we just like let him be him and do what he's best at. Like, you know, none of us were asking for Shadow Lord, and here we are. I bet it's going to be awesome. and that's what he does best. So I want him doing that. And
I'd love to see him, or even, any Star Wars do some live action short film things, or like kind of like what they've done with, not with Visions, but more so like Tales of the Empire, and do these, shorter episodes, 15 minutes, and have these different directors hit these episodes for 15 minutes. I know the production cost is probably astronomical and it probably doesn't make sense, but where I love YouTube fan movies. Some of my favorite Star Wars content are some YouTube fan movies, like the one where they find the ship and they're running from Nazis, and the ship takes off, and they're like, tell him, George, tell your son, and then the son's name's Walt, and it's like, it won a bunch of awards. But I would love to see Dave do something like that, like maybe make a series of shorts that tell a different story that he's really good at telling.
And like, people, I feel like kind of forget, but he made one of the best cartoons of my childhood, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it has, like, it's very similar. It's got a Star Wars vibe, honestly, a little bit.
Totally.
But it's like, it's absolutely its own thing. And I think if he pours it into Ahsoka and then maybe like works on a passion project over here, that would be good for him. But I think his passion project is Star Wars. So like, it's hard to, it's hard to balance. But I agree with you, Derek. The more stuff he can make that's just him doing his thing, and we can make it live action, the better sense we can get for like what kind of, Star Wars films you'd want him to make. Because it might turn out that, and it's okay if this is the way it turns out, it might turn out that if we do a trilogy again, we might not want Dave Filoni in that role. It's like, hey, I really want him in an Ahsoka series. Like, he's great at that. And go get, the guy who made Dune for the next trilogy. That's a very different vibe. But I digress.
Right, because you want to talk about full-length features, you do have to think about the Clone Wars animated movie.
True. Yeah.
So
but George is
I'll
in
kind
on
of leave that. But that, that's a Filoni thing.
Yeah.
And so I want people to play both sides of that. Of maybe he's not a full-length feature person.
But that's why I think it's unfair to throw him into it.
Right. And I think that was a long time ago, and I think he's gotten much better, and I think he will be fine. I think if he does we just have to see it first. And I think once we do see it, I think he'll be fine. I think it'll be fantastic, because I think he's going to have other people in there that's going to be a producers or a co-producer or co-director to help him, sort of get everything in line, because everything that he has done so far, in my opinion, has been fantastic, from the creating of characters to the Clone Wars, to the stories, to everything that we have to build on from this animation and from these live actions into the movies is phenomenal when Dave puts his touch on it.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're 100% right. I love that, you both have said it. Have him just give him the help. Give him the help he needs. Don't make him do it on his own.
So we went from George to Dave to so I want to touch on something, just because I've been doing it. If you guys are cool moving on in a little bit different direction. We've a little bit over an hour, but I'm interested to talk about some of these live actions that have been out, and again, what your favorites are, maybe what people in the chat, what their favorites are. Let us know, give us some feedback on that. But I've watched Skeleton Crew, Acolyte, Kenobi, and I'm in the middle of just, again, listening to a book and watching Clone Wars. But it's phenomenal. I love all of this stuff that's coming out, and just because I watched Kenobi the other day, what a great job I think they did. Even as much as problems people have with Reva, It's, but you still need that character in there. She has a cool story that we haven't seen before. We were able to see a little bit more of Order 66 because of her. You know, you need someone to, because Vader is so powerful, you know, Kenobi uses her so that he can get away. Kenobi uses, you know, the different things that he knows about Vader, you know, and uses her for that, because he's so powerful that, yes, Obi-Wan takes him on and pretty much defeats him for the second time, but he wouldn't have been able to get away if it wasn't for her and what she did. So I think that is just I don't think that gets enough credit. For me, like I said, that is my favorite, but everything that's come out, all these live actions are phenomenal.
Well, I love them. And, you know, Nick just messaged us like, hey, what's your top 3? And as I'm writing, I'm like, I'm one of the few people, and I know you guys are fans as well, but I loved the Boba Fett series. I know there were some problems with it, but my goodness, we got some cool characters. And I love the slow-mo moped scene. I don't care. I thought it was great because when it happened, it made me laugh. And like, not in a like, oh, this is so bad laugh. I was like, it was just a different thing that they did. But Black Chrysanthemum and like so many great characters in that. And we didn't need a Boba Fett series, but I'm glad we got it.
Oh, absolutely.
It gave some humanity to the Tusken Raiders.
Oh yeah. And it I think expanded the Mandalorian a little bit too.
Yep.
A lot of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean I think it was supposed to be a filler for Mando.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you still had 2 episodes in there, you know, that were mainly based on, or at least one was mainly based on Mandalorian. But man, I don't know. I can't. You're gonna have to go, Nick, because I really can't. I can't pick my 3 favorites because I think they're all in different ways. Again, Acolyte. I thought Acolyte was phenomenal, and I might have to put that in my top 3. I just thought it was so cool to see what went on beforehand. Yeah, there was a couple things that, you know, I didn't agree with, or I thought were okay. How are we going to explain this, or how are we going to explain that? But all of them, I thought, have just brought more depth to the Star Wars universe. No matter what it is, Skeleton Crew. I still think that we're going to see at Atten. I think we might see some of these characters somewhere. They're not just throwing this shit up there just for the hell of it. They're putting it up there for a purpose, and I think they've all been, you know, fantastic. Again, Andor, and they're all in different ways, because Andor, I mean, acting, the scenes, the story behind it, you know, for those
visuals,
the visuals, you know, are phenomenal, and I can't compare that to Ahsoka because there's so much Jedi stuff in there. We have so many characters, and I think they're both fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And Obi-Wan's fantastic too. And I don't understand the hate on that. I mean, I understand some things, but I love that series.
Yeah, and you get to see Vader. I don't know if he's in his prime, but he's in his
damn
most
near
violent. Yeah. He's in his most violent hatred, Sith era, I think. And it's just incredible. You know, when he's pulling people down the street and taking, you know, children out of their house or a bar and snapping their neck just to get Obi-Wan to step outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is true Darth Vader right there. That's the true pain that he feels and the rage that he has to find Kenobi. And then, I always think, and it gives me goosebumps, Nick, when you see the blue and the red switching on both of their faces.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see that, and to hear Anakin speak, but then also to hear him speak and also have a little bit of Vader in it as well. It's just chills run up and down, and even the little Leia, I thought she did a fantastic job. I thought it was a cool twist on that. I
loved her little droid too. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah,
what a great marketing ploy! Like
Lola.
Yeah.
Derek, you want any thoughts for your top 3? And to everybody, we didn't plan this. This is all off the top of our heads. What's up?
Yeah,
Lola?
so my top 3 are Mando, Skeleton Crew, and Andor. For me, Mando, I was a huge Mandalorian fan, and like Ron can tell you this. I had a Mandalorian flag that I turned into an acoustic panel in my recording studio well before they even announced the Mando series.
Wow.
Because I'm such a big Boba Fett fan. And when they announced that series, I almost I cried, because I'm like, this is everything I ever wanted. I wanted to learn the backstory of why Boba Fett, and so Mando just hit that, but then it hit it in so many ways of like, it came out when we really needed content, like good content. It was done so incredibly well. And it just tied in new people that would have never watched Star Wars. Look at Grogu. Grogu brought in kids. It brought in a lot of girls. So to me, Mando just has this effect that a lot of other things just couldn't match. Skeleton Crew, it was the most fun Star Wars story they've ever made. It was just fun.
Yeah.
And like, it's exciting, and I can't wait for more, but it was fun. It was like watching the Goonies all over again, but in Star Wars. And then Andor, best storytelling, story building. Like, the people that said Ann Bore, I'm like, so you don't like a good long story. You don't read books. You don't read books at all. You uncultured swines.
That's great. I agree. Like, Mando hit in a way that was needed, but also kind of unexpected. Because in that first season, we didn't get all that Mandalorian stuff. We just got like his personal story. And there were those, like, each episode kind of had its own like Western adventure and like an overarching plot. But, to be watching it and know that we're probably going to get a lot more of this, and we're going to go a lot deeper into the nerdy stuff that we're all begging for, that it was just this time that felt almost limitless when Mando came out. And to your point with how huge it was.
Well, and you have to think of the time frame it came out, because it came out in November of 2019. So this is leading up to the pandemic, and it was done. It was done by the Christmas time. But once the pandemic hit, everything changed, and I watched Mando over and over and over again. And then the second season came out, and Ron and I would watch it in my studio, and it hits a different spot for me.
Agreed.
All right, put yours up there. While you're doing that, I'm gonna Larry put his up there. I think Mando, Ahsoka, Andor, and Skeleton Crew. But everybody's putting 3 or 4 up there. That Mando definitely, Derek, is I think it started it all. Which it was groundbreaking. It was a brand new characters, so I thought that was really fantastic. And I do think that the pandemic did have a little bit to do with not the ratings, but the watching or the numbers, because again, people were just sitting around. We all thought it was going to be a couple months, which turned into a year and a half of sitting at home.
2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right. And then, these things started coming out more and more. And I think it has to, or I think it has a good reason, is because of Mando, and Mando was able to come and do that and set that standard. And then as that picked up, they were like, hey, this is a good idea. Maybe we need to do this with some other things, which I thought was fantastic. So, Nick, what do you got here?
I got Andor, Kenobi, and Skeleton Crew, and this is kind of just a off the top of my head list that's movable. But Andor's not movable for me. I thought it was like, it's a tough word to use because it's all subjective, but I thought it was objectively the best show even before season 2. Like, I thought it was a lot more like, just the vibe was a lot more story driven, and you could tell like a lot went into very meticulous detail. But people thought it was boring. I didn't. Second season blew me away. We've been talking about it all year. I just think it's going to be really hard to top for me. And this is a through line for another one of these, but I wasn't expecting Andor to be what I thought was the best Star Wars show.
No, it was the show that, it was the show that no one asked for, that everybody needed. Yeah.
And honestly, you can go see our past episodes because we have all raved about it like crazy. But Kenobi for me is just more of a bias. Kenobi's my favorite character. To see Ewan McGregor come back was huge for me, and a lot of people my age group. Is everything Ron said, and I agree. Like, people were saying Kenobi was boring or slow, and then Darth Vader comes around and it's all of a sudden the best. And I thought it was, it's like a big 6-hour movie or however long it is, just a big, like, personal moment to see a Kenobi show. And then Skeleton Crew surprised me like Andor did. I just had fun every week. And I don't know, that might change, but like when it comes to mine, like what have I enjoyed watching the most? I loved Mando, as we all did. I love Book of Boba Fett, like you guys do. All that. I love Ahsoka's great, but like I watched Skeleton Crew with like reckless abandon. It was like, this is great. This is fun. No notes, just, give me more. And I was surprised by that. I thought, I would have thought if you'd have given me a list of shows and I hadn't seen them before, that like, oh, Ahsoka is going to be number one. And it, not that I don't like it, but like I had so much fun with Skeleton Crew. My heartstrings, like many people, got pulled by Kenobi, and then I was just blown away by Andor. Like, it's all kind of unexpected, but I think that's the point of these shows, though. There's not any of them that any of us, I think, hated, but they just hit you different. Yep. So
you can put my list up there. I'll talk a little bit about that, but Larry has a good point too. I think that Mando did sort of restore the faith in Star Wars. Well, it was sort of dying down a little bit. That came back big, and then Skeleton Crew for him, restored his faith, which I think is cool because it was such a cool different take on everything that's been going on in that. And there's, I think that Skeleton Crew for someone like myself, like you were saying, Nick, you can watch it with, just reckless abandon and just have a good time with it, because that was, that age was when I watched Star Wars. When the Star Wars came out, I was 10, and and then Empire was, whatever, 13, and then so again, that was the time where it was like you were thinking about Jedi, be like to be on a spaceship and go somewhere. So we were able to see that in this live action with these cool characters that, even though it was in a galaxy far, far away, but it's also something cool that we can all, I think, sort of relate to as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's definitely a good point. And the reason I have these here, my list is Kenobi, Ahsoka, and Book of Boba Fett. These are all because of the characters and the character development for me as an OG guy. And even Ahsoka, because Ahsoka is on my Mount Rushmore. Ahsoka has become one of my top 2 or 3, definitely top 4 characters. So to see her come to life and what they were able to do with her even in Mando, and then for her to get her own first season, and we're going to get a second season, which is going to be phenomenal. That was just cool for me to see that. And I think Evan said something about that for Ahsoka because of Rebels as well. We get to see her in Rebels, and we get to see some of this different thing, the different her different character as she gets older and more mature in Rebels, and we see some of this things as we see her develop. Kenobi, obviously, because like I said before, I get to see what happened to him afterwards. Because we see what happens when Ben takes him to Tatooine, and we don't know what really happens. Yes, we can. The book is fantastic, but for them to bring that to live action for me was so cool to bring more or some to that character, more meat and potatoes to that character for me. And same with Book of Boba Fett. I waited 20-30 years to see Mando, or to see Boba's hand come out of the sand and come out of the Sarlacc pit. It was just that was such a cool moment. And then also to see him, to flash back and see him inside, and what he did to survive, and to see him and his story with the Tuskens and different things. And I know, some people had some hang-ups that, he was sort of turned into a nice guy or a good guy or something. But again, if you watch it and you go into it, he explains why he is like that now, in reference to where I think Jabba ruled with fear, and he wants to rule with respect. And I think that sort of answers that question, where people are, how come he's not just freaking killing everybody and he's a softie now, or this or that. But
he also died.
Right.
Like he also had a human altering experience that, I think Mike has talked about it before. Like, it makes the show ultimately like more meaningful that he's not just around shooting everybody, Right. But
he's just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe, or his dad is, or somebody.
No. But again, that's why, again, Andor, theatrically, story wise, just to bring us up to Rogue One and even A New Hope, and as it goes on and on. But I think Andor definitely affected Rogue One and A New Hope for me, because I went and watched them right after Andor season 2, and I think those stories were phenomenal. So and same with, that would have been on the Mando. It was just sort of on its own. It was a new character, fantastic, brought a lot of people in, Derek, like you said, a lot of people in that are new Star Wars fans. So it's hard to pick for me, because I think all of them were fantastic. And the Acolyte probably would have been 4 for me, because the lightsaber battles, Chimere, the Cortosis, Plagueis, there's so many things in that, and I think both of you guys will agree with me. There's so many cool things in that we got, we got to see, like, I think Nick and I were talking about this the other day. We got to see a Jedi Wookiee in live action, so that was just such a phenomenal job that they did with that. Some of the things that some people didn't like. I mean, you have to learn to get around them. You have to have, like you've said before, Nick, if you have your own head canon, you can sort of overlook some of the things that maybe aren't right. Okay, Luke and Leia kissing, that's still a freaking huge thing. It's like, but if you didn't know that this hot chick was your sister, why would you not? Then when you find out, you're like, ooh, that's sort of
Yeah,
creepy.
it's just that whole. I think I've always known.
Ooh, really?
Yikes!
Yeah, but again, you have to overlook that. You can be creeped out about that, but also there's things. It's the same thing with. There's a big thing now with Leia saying, "Oh, she remembers her mom."
Right.
So again,
there's also just like general stuff that we do. We already do it with Star Wars constantly. Like you have to take kind of like the rules of the world you're given and like just go with them. So the seeing my mother thing, you can pretty easily just say that must be a Force thing because I've seen that she was an infant, or kissing his sister, like, well, it's fine, whatever. They didn't know. We move on because we do it with, like, there's technically no sound in space, but we hear all this stuff because it makes a good movie. Oh, hey, Mike. And so
Hey.
Hey, there's a lot of franchises that have problems. You look at Mighty Ducks, Adam Banks watches himself from the bench scoring the game-tying goal.
So we do it constantly with Star Wars where we do hey, I'm watching this cool thing and I have the suspension of disbelief here. But then we nitpick the little ones where we're like, I wouldn't have done it that way. So the disbelief is back on. And it's like, well, you kind of have one way or the other, pal. And, anyway, we kind of got off there, but
yeah. Have you been listening at all, Mike? Or you just,
I have not. I've not been able to.
So right now we're actually doing, we're rating our 3 favorite live actions. And sort of going from there. And
you're running back what ours are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me hear them.
All right, let's get to Derek first. Let's go. Where is it? There we are. Derek, brief explanation to Mike.
Yeah, Mando's incredible and it saved the world. Skeleton Crew's fun and I love it. And Andor is the best storytelling in Star Wars.
Wow, that was great.
Valid.
Here's mine. I agree. Andor's the best story in Star Wars. Kenobi just pulled on my heart as it was designed to. And Skeleton Crew for me was the most unexpected fun thing. And the word I use is I watch it with reckless abandon. No notes, just love it. Doesn't mean I don't like all the other ones. I love the other ones, but it was like unexpected contender for me. And then we got Ron.
For me, it's all character development. Again, just I was saying Ahsoka, when she's become one of my favorite characters through what Dave has done with her in Clone Wars and Rebels and now the live action. So as an OG, she has become one of my favorites, like Kenobi or Boba Fett, who were around almost 50 years ago. But Kenobi, I just watched it. I just binged it again, like literally in one day. I just couldn't stop, and it's so good. And that's just it for all of us. We were talking about Mando. It sort of re-sparked everything for Star Wars, I think, and it's phenomenal. We all, and I think you'll agree, we all love all of them. I mean, Acolyte probably would have been my number 4. Because there's so many cool things in that where we get to see, a Wookiee Jedi in live action. We get to see Chimera with the cortosis and Plagueis, all of these things that we get to see in these. And Andor was fantastic. Story wise, cinematography, unbelievable. But for me, the character development for me to see Boba Fett breaking out of the sand, coming out of the Sarlacc pit, who he has become now, with Fennec, everything, being a Tusken for I think it's 5 years he's with the Tuskens. So those were they were definitely based on character development for me.
No, that's absolutely spot on. And I'll give you my 3. The Acolyte's not on it, but when you bring it up, if it got a second season, if the story continued and got fully rounded out, then maybe it would have been. But so much like what Derek was saying, Mando's got to be on my top 3 just because of what it did. The sequel trilogy had just ended or was ending, and it brought a lot of people back to Star Wars, but it also felt like the original trilogy more than pretty much anything else that had happened since 1983. So it really brought a lot of people back to Star Wars, but I mean, it's 3 seasons. It's hard to compare 3 seasons versus 1 season, but even still, season 2's got the whole Ahsoka being brought into live action. Luke's return is just, I mean, top tier. And even the smaller characters like Boba Fett returning in season 2 is awesome. On Tython of all places, on the Seeing Stone, like really cool lore stuff too. So Mando's definitely one. Ahsoka, single season wise, it's my favorite. If we're just going by single seasons, just the talking about lore, you add a whole new galaxy to the equation, but you bring in the Rebels crew into live action. You bring in great new characters, just like old, but Bale and Skull, Shin Hati, Morgan Elsbeth, I guess Mando, but Morgan Elsbeth. You bring in Thrawn into live action. You set up the heir to the Empire. Great stuff. And then my third one is kind of tough because you all make very good arguments for a lot of the other ones. Skeleton Crew, of course, was great, but I don't think I put it on my top 3. Just again, if it gets to season 2, it could get there, or even if we get more of those characters, it could get there. Skeleton Crew, to me, it feels like people just forgot it even existed. Like as soon as it ended, people were like, "Okay, Andor season 2," like it's over. But it's definitely very good, and like Ron said, these are all so good. But it's got to be Andor, and maybe it's a recency bias thing, but maybe it's not, because Andor season 2 was just a freaking masterpiece. Those last 5 episodes were all just like bang, 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 bang. So yeah, it's got to be Andor season 2. So Mando, Ahsoka, and Andor. Those got to be my top 3 right there. But again, the finale of Kenobi is spectacular. Skeleton Crew is extremely underrated. The Acolyte has some ridiculous highs. All these different shows. Book of Boba Fett, episode 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger, might be my single favorite episode of all live action stuff. So each project has its great moments. So it's really hard to pick just 3, but those are the 3 I'm going.
It's also tough with some of these shows. It's not tough. It's when you rate them, you know, Ahsoka, for example, has the backing of like 2 animated shows and a little bit of the prequels. Kenobi has like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, you know, and Book of Boba Fett, although it has Boba Fett, let's be honest, most people's interpretation of Boba Fett is their own imagination. So there's nothing to like, you know, we have them from the Clone Wars, we have comics, we have all that kind of stuff. That's great. But there's like this, I wouldn't say it's unfair, but it enriches the stories of these other shows, that there's so much that Ahsoka is basically just like continuing Rebels and then becoming its own thing. Skeleton Crew is 100% its own thing, maybe is setting up other things, but Mando was its own thing that was able to create this new era that we now kind of understand better. It's hard to place them because some of them have this backing that others don't. One that doesn't have any backing, I hate to keep harping on it, but The Acolyte has no backing. Probably the most interesting and intricate and complicated story of all of them that needs exploring. Doesn't have like the backing of other things that people care about, although it might be just as good as Book of Boba Fett, might be just as good as Ahsoka, might be just as good as the other things. So it makes it hard to rank them. And I wasn't trying to put people on the spot by ranking them, but I feel like you get a more honest, like, what do
I stand by my answers.
Yeah, you get a more honest, like, how do I feel about it? If you had to pick 3 right now, it's like, what would I watch right now? And I was like, I can't believe I'm picking Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
But I want to watch it right now. Like,
no, absolutely. And when you bring up Skeleton Crew too, because it adds, much like Mando, because Mando season 1 added so much new stuff, new characters, new worlds, new everything. Skeleton Crew does the same thing. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it might be setting up something too. I mean, at Atten, this Old Republic mint, the ability to print credits, especially now in the galaxy where there's New Republic versus Heir to the Empire Thrawn, whoever's in charge of that, whoever has power on Atten, pretty much controls the galaxy because they have control of the money. So if Thrawn goes in and takes over, At-Aten, because we've seen the map on StarWars.com that At-Aten and Dathomir are right next to each other. That would change everything. And then Skeleton Crew becomes the most important project when it was not important at all.
That's how they do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think everything you could have obviously more seasons of all of them, which obviously we're getting more Ahsoka. But yeah, like you said, Aten, we still have. I think that's definitely going to come up somewhere, along with maybe all 4 of the characters, maybe a couple of the characters, whether maybe it's just, John Nawad or some of the kids. But I don't think that they just sporadically put these things up there for no reason at all, just like Tales of the Underworld.
They never do.
We're gonna, and we were talking earlier, we talked to Nika Futterman, and she's not giving anything away, but there's no way that she's not going to be in the Maul series. There's no way that Asajj, as they build her up and bring her in for an Underworld, that they're not going to have her in that. And somebody's going to have to take that. We're going to figure out what they do with that money. Which will be interesting to see.
There's also a series that I was surprised to see end as abruptly as it did. So it's like there's more here. So it either ties into something else or we're getting more. But we just kind of left the kids, and it's like this seemed like a pretty big deal that it's just done. Because I think everybody was like, okay, who are we gonna see? There's some big tie-in, and there wasn't. It's just X-Wings. And it's like something going on here.
Oh, I'll give my left leg to get another season of Skeleton Crew, like for real.
Well, that's the thing, too.
Actually, my right leg.
You never know what Ahsoka season 2 or the Mandalorian and Grogu movie could set up, because we could be getting a season 2 of that show, and Ahsoka might somehow set that up in some sort of way. Maybe Jade is in it, or maybe the kids are in it. I don't know. But like you said, it does end pretty abruptly. These people who lived their entire lives on this planet where they thought that they were completely disconnected from everything else, and they thought the galaxy was perfectly fine and all this stuff, and then their whole world just shifts, and then that's when it ends. Like Wim has a lightsaber, and that's where it ends. Like there's some pretty wild stuff going on there. So I maybe not a season 2, or maybe a season 2. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, there better be.
Even if it's not, then we could see those characters somewhere else, which would be cool too. But the thing that does give me hope for a season 2 of Skeleton Crew is the fact that when John Watts was asked about it, the creator of the show, he was pretty much saying that we have an idea for season 2 and we won't get Stranger Things where the kids will be way older and they'll be playing younger kids. They had a way to go around that where there'd be some sort of time jump. And if they do Mando and Grogu and Ahsoka season 2, then that sort of time jump would make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I think you're right, because like you had said even before, when Skeleton Crew ended, they're not even starting to film anything yet. And even if they start to do it tomorrow, these kids are 3-4 years older than they were when they started filming before. And as we know, as kids and young adults, you see a much bigger difference in an age gap in a shorter amount of time than you do as we get older. So when you go from 10 or 12 years old to 15 or 16 years old in boys and girls, that's a big difference. And I think you're right. Yeah, if there's a good time jump that we can take these kids from At-Aten and throw them into the Mandoverse or whatever, now they've gotten older, it's going to tie in and feel better. And maybe we get to go back a little bit and find out, what has happened. On At-Aten, there's some flashbacks here and there to give us a little bit more of a story, maybe to tie some things in. But I think, the Mandalorian and Grogu it's going to be an epic movie. First of all, no matter what, but bringing this Mandoverse to fruition with all of these most of these live actions in there, like you were saying, like with Cobb Vanth, you showed that video yesterday. He would, if he's not in it, he would have been like, nope, I'm not in it.
Yeah. Well, his answer was pretty much, I can't say anything about that. I mean, that means you're in it. Like you could have said, "Oh, I don't know anything about that. I'm definitely not in it," and lied or done anything else. Saying I can't say anything about that, that pretty much means you're in it. Yeah.
Well, and I think, like you've said before, we have to bring all of these people are going to have to fight Thrawn. He's just so brilliant in the way of thinking. Doesn't have to be a Force user. He's able to strategically know exactly what's going on and figure everybody else out. So we have to have some little pieces that he's not too sure about come in, and some characters that he's not too sure about come in the back door, come in the side door, come in the window, where he's not expecting that, because he's got everything lined up and he knows exactly what that next move is going to be.
Yeah, Thrawn's only weakness right now that I see, because I just finished the Heir to the Empire Legends trilogy yet again, but he knows everything and everything about everybody. Right now, his only weakness is he's been gone for 11 years. So he doesn't know Din Djarin. He doesn't know Cobb Vanth. He doesn't know Boba Fett. He doesn't know these people. So that's probably a big, like, what we saw on Disney Plus of all those different characters having connections to each other. That might be the weakness that takes down Thrawn. Not Luke Skywalker, not these big heavy hitters, but just the bounty hunters, the side characters. It does beg the question, though, because we know so little about the Mandalorian and Grogu plot, but from what we've seen from that leaked trailer, Grogu, I mean, they seem to be going on some sort of mission for the New Republic, but how does that involve Boba Fett or Cobb Vanth? Like, what would be the need for him to go get his friends? I mean, unless it's Thrawn, and that would change what we really think we know about this movie, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, another detail too is that we didn't just unite the Mandalorians for nothing.
Yeah.
In these shows, and headcanon for me around that would be that Thrawn would know everything there is to know about what the Mandalorians used to be.
Yeah,
they're a very different entity now, and we don't see them in the sequels. So
exactly.
Whatever occurs here, I don't see how it wouldn't involve them, considering the last kind of thing that we see is all of them together retaking Mandalore. And then you're telling me like Exegol rolls around and we don't see any. So, I don't know, but
it would be crazy if, and this is just popped into my head, so maybe I'm wrong, but a big fan theory for Mando season 3 was that the armorer was Rook Kast, and Rook Kast is the Maul DeLorean who is going to be in the Maul series. So it would be really, really crazy if that was revealed to be the truth. And when Thrawn rolls up to Mandalore, she takes off her helmet and she's just like ready to serve. Like, imagine the Mandalorians turned and we're helping out Thrawn. Like, that would be kind of crazy. Obviously, Bo-Katan has gone through this character arc where I don't think she would do that, but maybe some of them would. I mean, the Mandalorians are always known for having civil wars. It would be make sense for them to split up.
But I also think that they need some sort of army. So I think that sort of put that in their back pocket. So now you have an army, because obviously, well, from what we've seen, we think they're going back to Dathomir to bring life back to the Night Sisters. So now you have all these Night Sisters. What do the good guys have at this point, besides everyone that's going to be in that Mandoverse? But I think you're going to see a lot of Night Sisters, and I think you're going to see a lot of Mandalorians die in some sort of war or some sort of fight in reference to that, because you're not bringing Mandalorians back together and bringing back Mandalore without doing something with them. And same with the Night Sisters. You're not bringing back hundreds, if not thousands, of Night Sisters back from a different galaxy to bring them back to life for nothing.
Well, and then like in universe, not only Thrawn, but I doubt many people at all would know that the Mandalorians are back and better than ever.
No.
They've been doing it out in the middle of nowhere, kind of on their own time. So that's something he wouldn't know about. He might know because he'd get into these shadow meetings and find out Gideon got, presumably killed, or his whole thing went awry. But Gideon wasn't really keen on sharing real information either. So, I don't know. I think there's plenty of avenues for it to go that will eventually, it just kind of depends on which project starts rolling the ball. Whether it's the movie, whether it's Ahsoka, who knows?
Yeah, no. I mean, it does seem like we're kind of onto something here where Thrawn would know about Luke. Well, like you just said, if he goes to the Shadow Council is going to be like, look, this kid Luke, sister, husband, these guys, they took down the Emperor, they took down Vader, they took down the Empire. So they're the bad guys. He wouldn't know about the Mandalorians. He wouldn't know about Boba Fett. He wouldn't know about Din Djarin and the Skeleton Crew, or just those characters, like the ones that we've been following. So they are pretty much the key to taking down Thrawn. Now, it seems, because going back to the map on StarWars.com, location-wise, Dathomir is very close to Mandalore. So if there's going to be a big old battle, it'll probably be around one of the... I just mentioned a bunch of characters. Forgot to mention Cal Kestis. Cal Kestis and Merrin they wouldn't be ones that Thrawn would know. Now, maybe he would know Cal from the early days of the Jedi, but he probably would assume he's dead from Order 66 or whatever. It would be really, really cool if we got to see with Cal Kestis and Thrawn knew exactly who he was. Like, that would be awesome. That would be so cool. But yeah, I'll always stick to that. I'm always on Derek's side. I think Cal and Merrin are the keys too to all this stuff.
Well, and again, that would be a great to bring them in to that universe to help on the good guy's side that he doesn't know about. Because I think what will happen is that he knows the Rebels crew. We see that in Rebels already. He knows their history. He knows pretty much everything about each one of those characters. So maybe that's the first part of this movie where they try to do something. Hera has a plan, or Ezra has a plan, and it flops. And now you're bringing in these other characters like Cobb Vanth or Boba Fett or Din Djarin, or saying, hey, let's do it this way. This is my way of doing it. And Thrawn has no idea where they're coming from.
Yeah. Well, it seems like next year is going to be a lot of wins for Grand Admiral Thrawn, I think. And that's what we need. We need him to just rile up a bunch of wins. Because even in Ahsoka season 1, he escapes, but it doesn't really feel like he won. Like, he just sort of gets away. And for people who've never been introduced to him, that was their first introduction, because they don't read the books or they don't watch Rebels or anything. They don't really know how genius he is and how scared we should be of him. And you have to set him up as the next big bad, because he's the heir to the Empire. He's the heir to Palpatine and Vader, which is very, very scary names. So to have him get a bunch of wins in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie and Ahsoka season 2, and just really show people how genius he is and how 1,000 steps ahead he always is, that would be really, really cool. And then when it comes to Dave Filoni's movie, then you can have him maybe lose, and then hopefully it's a trilogy, and by the third movie, then he actually loses. But yeah, I think we're going to have to see him get a bunch of wins. And yet, like you said, Ezra and Hera maybe come up with a plan, they lose. He's going to go up toe-to-toe with Admiral Akbar. He's going to lose. I think we're going to get a lot of Thrawn getting a bunch of wins next year, which will be great.
Well, I think we're going to see, I'm sorry to everybody out there, but we're going to see some much-needed loss of people that we like.
Din Djarin, I've been saying it for months now.
Yeah, by much needed, I mean, we've gone a lot of Star Wars properties without loss. So it's kind of one of my gripes with the sequels is it might have hit a little harder if we lost somebody, but everyone makes it out. Everybody wins. Well, even, I mean, I love Finn, but even Finn, yeah, you make it out with everybody and everything's fine. That's a very Star Warsy thing. But I think this Rebels crew, what would make a Thrawn victory so impactful to people who followed this whole story is losing someone the way you lose Kanan. That was huge.
I think it would be
Hera, losing Hera.
I think it would be Hera.
Insane.
Because it would be a lot for so many people. She's the mom of the Ghost crew, pretty much. So it would mean a lot to Zeb. It would mean a lot to Sabine and Ezra and Ahsoka. And of course, she has a kid. So it would mean a ton to Jason Syndulla, too.
Yeah.
Maybe even put him down a dark path.
And another thing, go ahead, Ron.
So I have to go back and play devil's advocate on what you just said. In the sequels, we lose Han.
Oh, yeah. Well, the original.
Well, yeah, true.
You lose all of them, and you lose Kylo.
Yeah.
So you
Leia.
still have
True.
a lot of that. Well, and we lose
That's
the
true.
Emperor again, supposedly.
That's
Hey,
true.
he's coming back again. Well,
You know,
I mean, with this, like,
but I
the-
get it. Yes.
yeah, we're
Yes.
kind of set up that we have a new ensemble, and they all kind of like pull it off every time, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it might have hit it a little harder. But to another point Mike made with the wins for Thrawn, I think they're also gonna. I guess this is my bias, but I think they're also not mentioning Project Necromancer so many times for no reason. And so I think maybe part of his reason for, you know, maybe his airness to the Empire is contingent on, you know, you got to keep helping me with this thing. Or, you know, maybe that's part of why Dathomir's in the cards. You know, I don't know. But that Shadow Council isn't going away because that Shadow Council becomes the First Order. So it's not like Thrawn's just going to commandeer the whole thing. Something is happening that kind of like ties it all in that way, which might mean that they're not all super keen on just getting into a war right away. So this might be like Thrawn's thing only, and he still has other things to do. And then I hate to be that guy, but you know, even though he might hear about it, he really doesn't know what he's dealing with Luke Skywalker. And I'm not saying he's coming in. I'm not saying Luke Skywalker's coming into Ahsoka again or Mandalorian Grogu, but like he doesn't know even though he'll know who Leia is, he doesn't know who he's dealing with Leia.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole new board for him that he might not want to deal with. He might want this, like, you know, strangely convenient map that we all have that have these planets we know that are right next to each other. It might be contained to these. We finish out this rebel thing, and then we got Heir to the Empire moving, because I don't see Ron as a guy, or not Ron, sorry, Thrawn as a guy.
Oh,
I don't
Thrawn
see
is Thrawn. Have you ever seen him at the same place at the same time?
never. Thrawn looks at the data pad when talking about Ahsoka and kind of gets weirded out that she's Anakin Skywalker's apprentice.
Yeah.
How's he going to act when he finds out his son is basically the key to everything? And so, like, I don't think he's the guy who's going to be like, we're going to go and take on the New Republic head on. I think it's going to be these very strategic things to get the gears turning. And again, I don't think Necromancer has been brought up in multiple properties for no reason.
Yeah. Well, I think
especially Mandalorian.
Oh yeah. Well, the Bad Batch. I mean, the Bad Batch. Mount Tantus was brought back for a reason.
Absolutely.
I mean, in the Heir to the Empire, in the Legends Heir to the Empire, it's the key to the whole story. It's key for him making his army for clones. That's obviously not going to happen again. But I think Project Necromancer and Mount Tantus will be very important. You bring up a great point, and that is that the First Order is the end goal in all this. By the time of the sequel trilogy, Snoke, First Order, Kylo Ren, that's the people in power. So Thrawn's Heir to the Empire is a very quick and fleeting power. Like, he's going to come in and be all badass, but he's going to lose. And when he loses, another power comes to be pretty quickly. And they're very, very powerful. They take over the galaxy very, very quickly by the time of the sequel trilogy. So how that plays out is Thrawn like competing with the New Republic and the other side of the Empire, because there's people who don't really like him. When we see that Shadow Council meeting in The Mandalorian Season 3, they're almost arguing, like, oh, let's wait for Thrawn to come back. And they're like, he's not coming back. And then Moff Gideon's like, I'm doing my own cloning thing over here on Mandalore. Like, they're all just kind of doing their own thing. So maybe that's a big reason as to why they lose, or why Thrawn loses, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is do we see Thrawn in Mandalorian and Grogu? Because most people don't know who Thrawn is. If you haven't watched any of the other stuff, if you watched Mando, okay, cool. Now we got Grogu and we got Boba Fett and Fennec and maybe Luke. But again, who is that bad guy, and how are they going to introduce him into this? Now, if Ahsoka Season 2 came out before Mando, for sure, I could definitely see Thrawn in there. Let's go for it. He's the bad guy. But with Mando and Grogu coming out first and then Ahsoka, that's going to be interesting, I think.
Well, honestly, it'd be kind of cool to see the opening of, because we've talked about this plot leak of Embo and Stinky the Hut and whatever. It'd be great to see Din Djarin go on this opening mission or something along those lines. And then to end that mission, he finds this Shadow Council member, because one of the few castings that we know from the Mandalorian and Grogu movie is blanking on his name completely, but one of the Shadow Council members. We know that he's going to be in it from the Mandalorian season 3. So what if Din Djarin goes on this mission, finds him, captures him for the New Republic, and he's like, "You think I'm bad? There's this big blue meanie guy who's back, and he's a lot worse than me." And that like sets the stage for the whole movie. Like Thrawn might not be in it, but his presence is felt across the whole thing. And you can feel that the Empire's getting bigger. You can feel that there's this looming presence. And then maybe like at the end or post-credit scene, if they do those in Star Wars now, it's like if you've watched the Avengers movie, Thanos grabs the gauntlet and goes, "Fine, I'll do it myself." It's like Thanos going, "Okay, my turn." And then that leads into Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be that's definitely a possibility to do that. Yeah, where he sort of explains who this guy is.
Yeah,
maybe we see him, maybe we don't. But do you think we'll see him in Mandalorian and Grogu, or he'll just be mentioned?
I really don't know.
I don't think so, but I agree with Mike big time that depending especially on where in the timeline this movie is set, his presence will be known and felt, because it's kind of like the biggest thing for people in the, galaxy that we know. The biggest news they've gotten is that Thrawn is coming back, and they're going to have a hard time. If it's anything like what they've been building up with the New Republic and everything, they're going to have a hard time getting people to like actually act on anything. So, who do you get to act on? Well, people in the New Republic can know this guy Din Djarin, who can help them, start putting the pieces together. Also, at what point are we at in the timeline where like the Resistance exists, or, I think seeing him probably won't happen, but I think it'll be this looming thing that drives wherever he's going, or whatever mission it is, like Mike was saying.
Yeah,
you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
I think, much like Ron said, if Ahsoka season 2 came first, then he'd definitely be in it. But what I'm thinking here now is that he won't be in it, and if he is, it's the very, very end, and they're setting him up to be this big villain, because we know he's back. This must take place after Ahsoka season 2. From since the beginning of doing Mando season 1, it's been in order. Like, they haven't done anything before the Mandalorian in the Mandoverse. Like, it's been in order. Mando, then Mando season 2, then the Book of Boba Fett, then Mando season 3, then Ahsoka, then Skeleton Crew. So it's been in order. So you'd assume that Thrawn's back, but he's still on Dathomir reviving or waking up or whatever's going on with the Night Sisters. So he might not be ready to go yet. So it might not be till the very end of the movie. It would be crazy if it was just this huge cliffhanger, because the only Star Wars movie that really leaves us on a big cliffhanger, I guess other than Empire, is The Force Awakens. Like that Luke Skywalker standing on the cliff, that is a huge cliffhanger. It'd be wild to see if the Mandalorian and Grogu would do something similar, like Thrawn is the big cliffhanger. That'd be wild. I also would love to see him be in the movie fully, kill Din Djarin, and cause some havoc.
Bring the whole Chist ascendancy out there, take over the Empire.
Yeah.
All right. We are over 2 hours. Mike, appreciate you jumping on here at the end. I know you can't always make it, but we really appreciate when you do come on. If you guys, I'm sure most people already have. If you haven't already, check out A Guy Who Loves Star Wars Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 1 o'clock Eastern. right?
2 p.m. Eastern.
2 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock
Central.
for you.
That's when I watch it. Again, we let me find it here. See what I got here. Please go check this out. We just had an amazing interview with Nika. I spoke about it a little bit earlier tonight. It's about an hour. She talks all about Asajj and just getting into voice acting and different things like that. So check that out. It's a really, really cool interview. She's funny. She swears. So it's fun. And we were able to stump her on a couple questions at the end with some rapid fire questions. She was a little distraught trying to figure out answers. So it was really fun doing stuff with her. Again, Wednesdays will be on from now on. Is that me? I don't know what's clicking. My dog's down here choking. But again, thanks everybody for coming on here. Thanks for your comments. Appreciate everybody taking the time to come out here and talk with us and talk Star Wars. We had some new people jump on. Larry, thanks for coming on. The Max just left. SWA. Evan, thank you. Jacob, thanks for coming on. And if I missed you, again, thank you guys for coming on. We can't get everybody all the time. And we will see you on the next Star Wars Jedi Chat. See y'all. Thank you.